So, yeah, so we probably can do one more tonight. And depending on which one it lands on, I'll either probably run a little late tonight on the stream, or I'll definitely run somewhat late on the stream tonight, depending on which one it lands on. But let's spin. Let's spin. Oh, that was a weird little hiccup there. The 1 minute spin. Ooh. Ooh. Okay. 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 Mihoyo versus Capcom. This is definitely probably like the most niche roster I've put together. Saving the best for another time, you suppose. Honestly, Marvel vs. Capcom 4 could probably be its own stream. The wheel has honestly like kind of spared me by not making me do the entire Marvel vs. Capcom roster tonight. Um but yeah, instead we're doing Mihoyo versus Capcom now for your so yeah, so since this will probably be its own part of the VOD, um like this will probably be its own VOD separate from the roster I just did. I'm doing this exercise where I uh craft rosters for various versus Capcom games. Um and I'm doing Mihoyo versus Capcom. Mihoyo is the Chinese developer slash publisher that is mostly known for its Hoyoverse line of games, particularly Genshin Impact, um, Honkai Star Rail, and Zenless Zone Zero, which just came out. Um, yeah, so I basically come up with a base roster of 15 characters on each side, 15 Mihoyo characters, 15 Capcom characters, um, and then 2 seasons of 6 character DLC, 3 characters on each side for each season. Um, and and yeah, basically I come up with these fighting game rosters for a collaboration between these two companies, with the mindset of what rosters would these two companies decide on if they were to actually collaborate together. Um, like which characters would they market, which which what ways would they collaborate? Like this is a thought exercise to see like if this were to exist on the off chance that this did exist, what would actually happen. Um, so yeah, Mihoyo vs. Capcom was kind of wild to come up with. And and yeah, hopefully this is a fun exercise, even for those of you that aren't uh super mega aware of Mihoyo stuff. Um, I I when I was playing Zenless Zone Zero a couple weeks ago, I started thinking about uh how cool it would be to have like a Mihoyo like fighting game. And I think Hack just asked me, "Are you hinting at Mihoyo versus Capcom?" And I'm like, "No, honestly, I'm not. I think it would be a weird roster to come up with, and I don't think it's very feasible. And yeah, no, that would be hard to come up with. There's areas of Mihoyo that I don't know much about, and I don't think I could I could do a Mihoyo versus Capcom roster. And I was being honest when I said that. When I said that, I was being fully honest. But then I thought more about it, and then I couldn't get it out of my head, and now I've made the roster. So so yeah, let's begin. Starting off, of course, with uh okay, you had to step out, but you're back just in time for Mihoyo. Welcome back. Welcome back. Yeah, you missed some cool Sean picks on the Hasbro side. Um or on the Hasbro roster rather. I think the one you would have been most interested in is that I put Nergigante in as a giant character. Um but anyway, yeah, that's for anyone watching this VOD, I have a I have a Hasbro versus Capcom VOD up that you can now watch probably. I don't know, yeah, I don't see myself uploading this before that one, so. But yeah, so let's get up the Mihoyo guidelines. So Mihoyo versus Capcom would be another 2 versus 2 game. So yeah, for the guidelines, I put up whether I think it'd be 2v2 or 3v3. I come up with a key mechanic that the game will kind of revolve around, and the kind of character guidelines that I think would inform which kind of characters made the roster, particularly on the Capcom side. So yeah, this would be a 2v2. Yeah, I think generally they'd want the game to not be too complicated. 2v2 is generally a bit more accessible, and I feel like they'd want their game to be more accessible. Um, the key mechanic would be the perfect switch, based off of the perfect assist in Endless Zone Zero, where you can spend like some meter or something to swap your characters. Um, and as your second character swaps in, they gain a boost of some kind based off of the first character that swaps out. Basically, like yeah, like the character swapping in will get some kind of benefit from the character swapping out is basically kind of the fluff of that. Um the character guidelines, Mihoyo is filled with characters with weapons and characters with anime vibes. Um so yeah, like honestly, it's kind of some overlap with like Square Enix, kind of some overlap with Hasbro, um, but kind of almost in the opposite direction of Hasbro. Hasbro has a lot of like kind of Western vibe characters. Mihoyo has a lot of like Eastern vibe characters, and yeah, so basically like cool anime characters with weapons, and sometimes just characters that have cool anime vibes is kind of what we're going for the for Mihoyo versus Capcom. You did see Nergigante as you were leaving. Great giant fighter rep. He's kind of halfway to a fighting game character already with his moveset. I kind of thought that too, you know? I kind of thought he almost fits better than like something like Rathalos. But yeah, we're in Mihoyo mode now. Now we're talking Mihoyo. Um so yeah, first things first, should I just get the Capcom staples out of the way first? There is kind of no suspense with the Capcom staples, so I might as well, right? So on the Capcom side, there's 3 characters that have been in every single versus Capcom game ever developed by Capcom. Um, and that's Ryu. Obviously Ryu will always be here. That is Chun-Li. She has showed up in absolutely all of them. Now Ryu and Chun-Li will of course have their Street Fighter 6 designs and move sets. So you know that will differentiate them from other versus Capcom appearances, but those 2 characters will still be here, of course. and Morrigan, who has been in every versus Capcom game except SVC Chaos, which was developed by SNK and not Capcom. So basically, if Capcom has any say on a versus Capcom roster, Morrigan will be present. And there have been some rosters, right, where it's like, oh, is Morrigan too horny for the other company to approve? I mainly had this issue with DreamWorks, in which I suggested a a slight redesign where she's covered up a bit more. Um but uh but I do not have to worry about the horny problem in Mihoyo versus Capcom. Don't gotta worry about that at all. Morgan is super invited to Mihoyo versus Capcom. Mihoyo would probably beg Capcom to include her, TBH. So here she is. So, on the Mihoyo side, what are we gonna do? So, isn't Akuma also in like every versus game? Akuma is in many versus games. Akuma is in the Chinese release would probably cover her up, lol. Yeah, probably. She'd probably get like a little like little kind of like black lining, like kind of black fabric, like right here, right? Um Akuma is they've already censored some Genshin characters. Yeah, I do kind of like the Genshin redesigns for the most part. Um like I feel like they addressed the ratings issues they were trying to solve while still making them feel like the characters that they are. It's kind of funny um that they did cover up some Genshin characters and then they went the opposite direct like and then they made Zenless Zone Zero, and several of the characters in that are like your eye line goes immediately to certain areas and they won't go away, like it's like the camera is pointing at large pieces of exposed skin for several characters. um but anyway, I guess we'll get there when we get there. So yeah, the Mihoyo side. um so it's kind of hard to figure out who to include first. So I guess, hmm, yeah, should I start out with one of their more popular properties, or should I start with a weird left field pick that dictates where I think the direction of a Mihoyo versus Capcom story mode would go? And explain myself as I do that. Weird pick all the way? All right, you asked for it. You asked for it. Okay. So here's the thing with Mihoyo, right? Here's the thing with the Hoyo verse is that they have three they have a lot of different games, but they have a few several of their games um are very distinct from each other, right? They're all like very kind of like different feeling settings and different vibes, different cast of characters for the most part. But they rebranded Mihoyo rebranded to the Hoyoverse partially because there are several characters there are several characters and character designs that keep repeating throughout different Mihoyo games, right? Like, there will be a character in Genshin, and then a future version of that character will reappear in Honkai Star Rail, right? They'll technically be different characters, but they'll have like kind of the same names, kind of the same designs, um, and it's almost like these characters are like reincarnations or like alternate dimension versions of each other, right? Um, and their three biggest games. Sorry for the long wind up here, but I want to make sure we're all clear on what I'm doing. Their three biggest games are Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, Zenless Zone Zero. Um, but uh, but all three of these, and Genshin and Honkai in particular, Star Rail and Genshin in particular, because Zenless Zone Zero has barely been out. Um, and I think Zenless Zone Zero is also kind of trying to distinctify itself a bit right now and not have too many recurring characters. Um, but Genshin and Star Rail in particular both draw from a different, less popular game for their recurring characters. They also draw from each other, but it all started with a different game, or at least like one of the base points is a different game. Where are you? There you are. So our first Mihoyo character is Kiana Caslana, who is not from any of the big three games I just mentioned, but is uh from one of their earlier games, one of Mihoyo's earlier games called Honkai Third Impact. Uh so like my idea for the Mihoyo versus Capcom story, at least on the Mihoyo side of things, is that like basically, all these universes start merging together, right? So not only are these uh Mihoyo universes clashing and merging with Capcom universes, but they're also clashing and merging with these Mihoyo universes are all clashing and merging with each other. And I think the Mihoyo side of things will be seen largely through the perspective of Kiana Caslana, the main character in Honkai Third Impact. And what will be happening as she journeys through these Mihoyo worlds is that she will keep bumping into and recognizing characters in Genshin, in Star Rail, in Zenless Zone Zero that have names and appearances that remind her of the friends she's made during her adventures in Honkai Third Impact. Um, so like one of the main things I've done is have uh have several characters in the Mihoyo roster that happen to be recurring characters. Um and Kiana will be the main character that recognizes that these characters are recurring. Um I didn't get all the characters that I wanted to in that respect on the main roster. Um but yeah, I kind of started with Kiana Caslana as kind of the root idea, and she's kind of affected a lot of the Mihoyo roster because of thinking of her going like it's like, oh hey, wait, you're this person that I know, and no, they're not. They're a different version of that character. All right, right, starting the music back up. Ah, okay, starting the music back up. So yeah, Kiana Castellana as the first Third Impact rep. Just gonna go all the way over here. So So yeah, characters like what, Daniel? What do you mean by all this? So for example, um, there's a few very important characters in the Honkai Third Impact that end up being recurring in other Mihoyo games. So one of those will be our first Genshin Impact rep. Raiden Shogun. Um, yeah, she's a God. I forget what they're called, but she's basically a god in the Genshin universe. In Honkai Third Impact, she's just like one of Kiana's friends, right? Archon, thank you. She's one of the Archons in Genshin. And uh she's very important. Um, and also I think she'd have a cool move set. She's got that fucking electric weapon that she's pulling out of her chest. Obviously, very badass, very cool. Um, I got a lot of help from my fiance, by the way, for the Genshin side of things, because I don't know. Like Genshin is the Mihoyo property that I know the least about. Um, Devin didn't like dictate what characters for me to use. He mostly uh, told me several characters that were important in the Genshin setting, and I used those to kind of make my decisions from there. It was very helpful. Thank you, Devin. So yeah, Raiden Shogun as the first Genshin rep. Let's get another. Um, let's get another Genshin character out here that's important and not a god. Um, and also I think not really recurring, not someone that Kiana Castellana would recognize. So not all the characters are going to do that thing I just said, but several of them will kind of be a reference to kind of the history of Mihoyo. But our next Genshin character is going to be Tartaglia. Um, he's kind of a member of like the bad guy team in Genshin. I forget what they're called, but they're all very intimidating and scary. Tartaglia is cool. The Patui, thank you. Tartaglia is a member of the Patui, and Tartaglia is pretty cool. He's also known as Chilled. Um, he's pretty cool because one of the things about Genshin that's made me kind of hard to latch onto it is that a lot of the movesets of playable characters in Genshin are very samey, right? Like because basically like there's like 6 weapons in the game and like 5 elements or something, and like a lot of characters, if they have the same weapon and the same element, they'll play kind of similarly to each other. Um, which is an issue that Star Rail doesn't really have, and an issue that Zenless Zone Zero doesn't really seem to have so far. Um, Tartaglia manages to have a lot of unique moves because he is a boss battle in Genshin Impact at some point. Boss battle with like 3 different forms, where he like uses different elements and different weapons. So he can kind of utilize all these in his fighting game moveset and actually be a very fun, very exciting character to play as. Um, and and yeah, he will, he'll mostly look like this when he fights, but um, he'll have an install super, like his level 3 super will allow him to take on his foul legacy form, which looks like this. Um, and God, this is fucking metal. This is such a fucking cool character design, and I thought about just like making this the playable character, just him looking like this all the time. But I think I think it would also be cool if this was basically like his super form, that you had to like earn through gameplay. And once he takes this form, he's a fucking badass. Anyway, I thought that design was so cool that that's like my one visual aid outside of these character select boxes. Let's see, one more Genshin character, then I should probably do some Capcom or something. Um, yeah, Capcom side. I mean, Mihoyo side, I keep doing that. I keep saying one side when I mean the other. Is Kadahara Kazuha. Um, yeah, he's got a wind sword. Um, one funny thing about the character creation process of this is that Mihoyo games were filled with fucking sword users, right? They're fucking filled with people that use swords. Um, and so there were a lot of instances where I was like, oh, I won't pick this character because I don't want the roster to have too many sword users. And then I realized that I had almost no sword users on the Mihoyo side because I was subconsciously avoiding all of them. So I had to go back and find space for sword using characters. So the sword user for Genshin is Kadehara Kazuha, who apparently is very important in the story, has a very like cool tragic backstory. And even there a lot of characters in Genshin are only tied to a single element. Kazuha is one of the only characters in the lore of the game that is able to access the power of a second element, and that seems to be a cool thing for a fighting game character. So yeah, Kazuha is here. And that's a third Genshin character. It's a Capcom character I can show off. Oh, we're back. We're bringing back Smash Bros. Sword Fighter discourse with this game. I feel like the sword fighters that are going to be in this are going to feel pretty different from each other, you know? Like, I think, A, there's not too many sword fighter characters in this roster in the long run, but B, yeah, I think you can make them feel pretty different from each other. Let's see. Sword user on the Capcom side. Oh yeah, there we go. Dante. I got him in the base roster this time. Yeah, Dante's got a cool sword. He's also got guns. Yeah. I've said before that I feel like Dante is basically going to be a staple of the versus Capcom franchise from this point forward, as long as it gets to exist. And yeah, he would be right at home in Mihoyo. Mihoyo would be more than happy to have Dante on board, and I think he's a great fit. So yeah, Dante is absolutely, definitely here. In fact, like, if I, with less restraint, I feel like half the roster would be Devil May Cry characters on the Capcom side. But he is the only Devil May Cry character in the base roster. There were points where he wasn't, but that is a call I had to make in the end. Okay, yeah, let's put another Capcom character on the board. Let's Let's put another Street Fighter character up here. Now, what's funny is that Hasbro vs. Capcom, which I just built, was the first one roster to ever put together that put Crimson Viper in the roster. However, I think she also really fits in Mihoyo vs. Capcom. Just kind of this secret agent bitch that uses weaponry and like has cool kind of sci-fi stuff going on. And I think she'd be great for this roster, and I also think she'll be a good segue into other Mihoyo characters that have cool sci-fi shit going on, namely the entire cast of Honkai Star Rail. So one thing I kind of did is that, like, if your character, if the character is the icon you have to click to start the app for a Mihoyo game, you're much more likely to be included in the roster. I'd say the one time I didn't do this is that Paimon is the icon you click. Paimon is a cute little mascot character for well, you know, your mileage may vary on the term cute, but she's basically the intended to be cute mascot character for Genshin, and she's the icon you click when you boot up Genshin. I thought about making the kind of mute player character from Genshin along with Paimon as like kind of a joint character. I thought about making them playable. I did not end up making the final cut. But March 7th is the icon you click on to start Honkai Star Rail, and she is very important to the game. She basically keeps you company throughout the entire story mode as far as I've played it, and she's great. She's really cute and charming. I think she pulls off being cute better than Paimon does. And she's got a big like ice bow, and she could be a really cool like zoner character, you know. Yeah, I feel like she's kind of a shoe-in. She's kind of one of the most obvious additions to this game. March 7th will always be cuter and better than Paimon. Yeah, no arguments there. No arguments there. Also on the Honkai side, also on the Star Rail side, I should say, because there's multiple Mihoyo games called Honkai. Also, sorry in advance. There will be some Hoyoverse spoilers in this roster. I should have warned from the beginning, but yeah, there will be some spoilers in this roster. One of those is this character, who you meet very early in Honkai Star Rail, but you may not know that he has an alternate form. Dan Hong in Bibiter Lune. So basically at some point in the story, Dan Hong, kind of one of your companion characters, initially he's just kind of an edgy boy with a spear, but later you find out that he can turn into a dragon. And the version of Dan Hong that can turn into a dragon has incredible, phenomenal potential for a fighting game moveset. So that's the version of him that would be playable in Mihoyo vs. Capcom. Like, in the story mode of the game, Don Hong would be accompanying, like, the main cast throughout kind of the Star Rail portion of the story. Um, and then he would turn into a dragon and you'd get to play as him. Um, yeah, God, cool. He's great. He's got, it's such a cool anime ass design. Um, I really struggled with including him actually, but then I kind of realized that I had to. And one reason that I had to is because if we have an edgy anime boy that can turn into a dragon, um, then if we have an edgy anime boy that can turn into a dragon on the Mihoyo side, then we also need to include one on the Capcom side. And that is going to be Fo Lu from Breath of Fire 4. Now this Fo Lu is an anime boy that can turn into a dragon, and he's very edgy. And what's great is that Don Hong is basically, he's on the side of good. Fo Lu is largely an antagonist, and he can kind of take the villainous sides of things. So I feel like these two characters as rivals that clash with each other would be very fun, very cool. And you kind of love his design. Yeah, no, it's great. He's a great design. He was almost in he was cut from several versus. There were multiple times where he was almost in a versus Capcom game, and then they decided not to include him, largely because he's not that popular in the States. But I say fuck it, include him anyway. He's got such a cool design, and maybe this will popularize Breath of Fire a bit more in the States. Come over here. Um, let's have a. Let's see. The fact that no Breath of Fire characters have been in a versus game despite having 6 games in the franchise is so sad. Yeah, what are you qualifying as 6 versus Capcom games? Marvel's Capcom 1, 2, 3, Infinite, Tatsunoko, and then there's been like a few Capcom versus SNKs. Oh, despite having 6 Breath of Fire games, I'm an idiot. My bad. That is very sad. That's sad as hell. I rectified that a bit in my Square Enix versus Capcom roster, but also my roster isn't real. Capcom didn't make it yet. Okay, so yeah, let's get another So let's go back to the Kiana Kaslana storyline, right? Kiana Kaslana is bumping into alternate versions of characters she recognizes. March 7th and Dan Hong are original characters, basically. Um, I did try very hard to get Welt Yang and Himiko into the roster. And there were various points where Welt Yang was on the base roster, Himiko was DLC. They both kind of fell off the roster, so the best I can do for them is that they will be present in the story mode. Kiana Kaslana will bump into them on the star rail, on the titular star rail, and have that kind of recognition moment and be like, hey, wait, you're not my friends from my universe, some of which are dead. And they'll be like, no, the story mode's riveting. However, on the playable side of things, there will be one character that Kiana Castellana instantly recognizes. And that's Bronya. Now, in Honkai Third Impact, Bronya is one of the three main characters. Kiana Castellana, Raiden, and Bronya are the three main characters of the game. So Kiana bumps into Raiden Shogun in the Genshin universe and recognizes her. She bumps into Bronya in the Star Rail universe and recognizes her. Now, Bronya in Star Rail, in Third Impact, God, this is a mess. Bronya in Third Impact is just, kind of like one of Kiana's friends, like a fellow soldier. In Star Rail, she is the second in command of kind of the military faction of this planet called Belobog. And she's the second in command, basically like kind of the ruler of that whole planet. And Bronya is another character where like she has a cool enough like RPG moveset. Like, she's a support character that can kind of like buff your allies and stuff. But what's really cool about her is that she is a very she's a very frustrating boss battle in Honkai Star Rail, where she will bring out members of the Belobog like army, members of the Belobog armed forces, to kind of be her backup and support while she buffs them, and she buffs them from behind and also like shoots you with her gun, with her kind of bayonet thing. So she would be like a summon character, like kind of like a puppet character in Mihoyo versus Capcom, where her moves are like calling out soldiers to like shield hits for her and like attack you on her behalf. And she can also like take cover behind them and shoot you with her gun. She'll be kind of like a puppet zoner that will be very like annoying and frustrating to fight. She's also one of the characters I thought of when I came up with the key mechanic of having like a special swap ability where when you swap out, you give your partner a character specific buff. She would absolutely like kind of have a special swap ability where like she calls out her partner character and the partner will have their like health and attack like boosted from her like rallying cry basically. So yeah, Bronya absolutely as a Star Rail representative. I think she'd be really cool. So we got 7 Mihoyo, 6 Capcom. I'm gonna put out one more Star Rail character because I can connect it to some Capcom characters. Because I've got a fun rival idea. So another character that Kiana Castellana will recognize. And this will actually be very confusing for her probably. Is Silver Wolf from Honkai Star Rail. Now it's funny because Silver Wolf and Bronya are both they both use Bronya from Third Impact as a base. So like Kiana will think that she recognizes Bronya as Bronya, but then she'll also think she recognizes Silver Wolf as Bronya. Is this entertaining? Is this like Is this interesting at all, what I'm doing? I don't, like, I'm hearing myself talk and I think I sound insane. Um, but anyway, Silver Wolf is, uh, she's one of the first characters you meet, right? I think she's the second character you see when you start up Star Rail. And she's great. She basically, like, she's a master hacker, and she basically fights you with video games. um and I think that could make for a really fun, really interesting fighting game moveset. Um, she initially wasn't in the base roster, but you think it's fun because it's an explicit confirmation that they're reincarnations, basically, as opposed to Mihoyo just copying and pasting. Well, I guess that's reassuring. Um, so yeah, in Honkai Star Rail, uh there's, oh god, I forget what it's called, I'm blanking, but there's a roguelite mode in the game called the Simulated Universe. There it is. And in the story, one of the things Silver Wolf does is she hacks into the simulated universe, and this will actually be a major part of the Mihoyo versus Capcom story, because um Silver Wolf will hack into various digital worlds and simulated universes and stuff. Um, and as she does that, one of the characters she bumps into that tries to stop her is a character that lives within one of these digital spaces. And that is our main Mega Man rep for this game, megaman.exe. um the fact that, like, a big part of Star Rail is that, like, you're exploring these dungeons inside the internet, basically, and that being the entire plot of Mega Man Battle Network. uh yeah, once I made that connection, it's like, oh fuck yeah, Mega Man EXE is in this game, and Mega Man EXE needs a way to meet the Mihoyo characters, so I gotta put Silver Wolf in also, um as the character that, like, hacks the simulated universe. um so yeah, like, this is uh this is the 7th roster I'm building for my versus Capcom roster building exercise. This is the first time I've included megaman.exe, but I feel like he's a phenomenal fit for Mihoyo versus Capcom. And yeah, he'd have so many different cool tools he can use. Like, he'd be just the wackiest zoner. Like, I feel like actually he could kind of play similarly to Platinum the Trinity from Blaze Blue. Platinum the Trinity has, like, kind of a quasi random assortment of tools that she'll throw out, and you get, like, a limited amount of control over what tools she has at any given time. Mega Man EXE would kind of be like that with his battle chips, where, like, it's quasi random which ones he can equip, but if you play him skillfully, you'll kind of have a lot of different answers for different situations depending on what your battle chip layout is for Mega Man EXE when you're playing as him. God, I really want this now. I really want this to exist now. You could do a lot of fun stuff with Battle Network's combat system in a versus Capcom game, right? Yeah, I think it'd be really interesting. I think it'd be really cool. Let's get our other Mega Man rep out, actually, who I think would be a great fit for a Mihoyo collaboration, and that's Tron Bon. Why is Tron Bon a great fit for Mihoyo? Well, A, because her personality and her vibes and the fact that she's in a big mech, those are all correct answers. But the other correct answer is that in the Mega Man Legends franchise, there is the mascot characters of the Legends franchise are these adorable little robots with kind of like Lego block faces called the Serve Bots. And these Serve Bots are Tron Bonds. Like the Serve Bots belong to Tron Bond. They are in her Marvel vs. Capcom moveset, and and yeah, they're basically, you know, they serve her. They are in servitude to her. Um and basically I just imagine a scene where like Tron Bon ends up on the train. She ends up on the Star Rail from Honkai Star Rail, and the Surf Bots meet Pom Pom, which is the cute little bunny rabbit train conductor thing in Honkai Star Rail. Um, and through the Surf Bots bonding with Pom Pom, Tron Bon also gets to bond with March 7th. And the two of them kind of have a cute dynamic and a rivalry with each other, based on their mutual adoration for their like pets, basically. I know that Pom Pom technically isn't a pet. Pom Pom is a sentient entity, um, but he's also kind of a pet, and he's very cute. It's a very cute idea. Thank you. It's one of those ideas where it's like I latch onto it, and it's like, oh no, I really want this to happen now. So now that we're getting into like, yeah, I feel like this is a good time to. Well, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 characters on the Mihoyo side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, good, we're evened out. So let's do more Mihoyo. There's one big franchise we haven't included yet, and that's their most recent one that just debuted. So let's pull out our first Zenless Zone Zero character, Nicole. So oh fuck, yes, okay, there we go. So kind of deliberately, like I've kind of mentioned before, Mihoyo has kind of cooled it a bit with like recurring characters and recurring themes for Zenless Zone Zero. They kind of want to make it their own thing, its own thing, at least at the start. It seems like, but a lot of people have pointed out that Nicole Damara looks very similar to a Honkai Third Impact character called Elysia. So Kiana Castellana will recognize Nicole as kind of an alternate version of Elysia when she steps into the Zenless Zone Zero universe. So that way I can kind of keep my theme going. But yeah, Nicole is the character on the icon for Zenless Zone Zero that you have to click to open the app. But on top of that, I think she's a very iconic design. She's a great pick for kind of like the face of Zenless Zone Zero, and she'd have a cool moveset. She's like kind of a zoner. Like her little briefcase is also like a cannon that she shoots lasers out of. And yeah, I think she'd be kind of a cool zoner character. So yeah, also great character design, and she should be in the game. So yeah, Nicole Damara is the first Zenless Zone Zero character. Let's get another Zenless Zone Zero character on the board. She does kind of resemble Lissy. Yeah, a lot of people seem to say that she's, that she is a callback to Elysia. Like the speculation seems to be that that's deliberate, but I'm not convinced fully, but I'm making that connection for this game anyway. And the next Zenless Zone Zero character is another Damara. It's Nicole's adoptive sister, and Anbi Damara. Um, she initially wasn't on the base roster, but she's one of the characters that I put into the base roster when I realized I needed more like kind of traditional sword fighter characters. So and Anbi's great. She's just like, you know, like a little ninja basically. Super nimble, super quick. She'd be an amazing like fuck you up with a sword like rush down character, like dual blades, I think. Yeah, she'd be really fun as a fighting game character. And she's got a great personality, and I think she'd like have a great dynamic with a lot of other Mihoyo and Capcom characters. So yeah, honestly, she wasn't initially on the base roster, but I'm happy to have her on the base roster. So here she is. Um, and her rival kind of to as like in another like kind of ninja rep on the Capcom side would be Strider Hiryu. He's on the base roster this time. Yeah, also just cool like techno ninja, just kind of like Anbi is. Anbi, I forgot how to pronounce it. Um, but yeah, I feel like they would be a cool team and they'd interact in cool ways, and yeah. So Strider on the base roster, which always feels right. It always feels right to have Strider in the base roster. One day I'll flesh my playlist out with more stuff that I have the rights to. Sorry if this is kind of repetitive, but I feel like it's better than no music at this point. You thought I was gonna say Ibuki at first. That's a phenomenal idea. I kind of already have too many Street Fighter characters on the base roster, actually. But that's a great fucking idea, actually. Like, I should think of Ibuki more when I think of versus Capcom characters. She'd be great as a versus Capcom character. But yeah, we got Strider instead. And actually, yeah, while we're talking Zenless Zone Zero characters, and while I'm talking about the fact that I have a weird amount of Street Fighter characters on this roster, let me pull out another Street Fighter character that has very Zenless Zone Zero vibes. Here's a character that I would not blink twice if they were on the Zenless Zone Zero roster. And also another ninja. Kimberly from Street Fighter 6. Like, she has like you know, she has like graffiti spray can bombs. She like plays like music from a cassette tape while she fights. I feel like she's secretly a Zenless Zone Zero character this whole time. So yeah, she's got a need Kimberly in March 7th interactions right now. Oh my god, I'd love that. Yeah, I was thinking more of her interacting with the Zenless Zone Zero cast, but really, yeah, I would love Kimberly in March 7th. Ugh. My dog just shook his wet face next to my foot, and now my foot is wet. Thanks, buddy. Just gonna sniff me for a minute. Um, but yeah, like, Ibuki is an incredible fit. I think Kimberly is a character that kind of has overlap with Ibuki and manages to fit even better. But Ibuki was a great suggestion. Okay, cool. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 characters left on each side. Okay, yeah, let's jump back to Genshin. So yeah, on the Mihoyo side, the next Genshin rap is Zhongli, Um, Zhongli is like the Earth Archon. He's the Geo Archon. He has Earth powers, and he like hits you with meteors, and he has a cool staff. And he can call up like Earth pillars that enhance his powers. I think he has the potential to have a very cool fighting game moveset. And also, he's incredibly popular. He seems to be one of the like more beloved Genshin characters, and he's also very present in the story. So all those that's just a perfect delicious soup that all mixes together into him being a great fit for the roster. So yeah, Zhongli is apparently the entire reason that my fiance started playing Genshin. Um, so apologies if this inclusion is a bit skewed by any bias that my source for Genshin characters might have, but at least from my perspective, he does seem to be pretty important. So here he is. And my fiance does seem to insist that it's not bias. I do mostly believe him on that. I'd say it's likely that it's not bias. I can't say for sure, but I feel like it's not. We got the wow in all lowercase. Look, if I fully thought it was bias, I wouldn't have included him. But here he is. Yeah, if you were if my fiance was biased, he would have demanded to either put Yai Miko or Yai Sakura in. Which apparently, yeah, like I should say that like my fiance was very honest when I was asking him things. When I was like I'd say a character I recognize, I'd be like, is Yai Miko important to the story, or do you just love her? And my fiance would always answer honestly, and in Yai Miko's case, just went, I just love her. I just love her. She's not that important. But my fiance loves Yamiko so much that I thought Yamiko was incredibly important to the story. Uh, because I saw her all the time. Okay, one more last Genshin character on the base roster. Where are you? Where are you, last Genshin character? Ah, yes. I think this is a good one. Arataka Ito. Um, yeah, this dude is an Oni, and he's also a big fucking himbo. And he's got a giant fucking club. Um, and apparently people like he has his subordinates that maybe he can like call out as part of his attacks. Um, yeah, like this seems like just like A, like I've seen clips of this character and he's very funny. And B, just look at this. This looks like a classic fucking bruiser archetype. Like, dude with big beefy attacks that have armor. Like, he looks like he'd be a blast to play as a fighting game character. Um, he's not as like key to the story as the other four Genshin characters, but I generally wanted to have at least like a couple characters throughout the Mihoyo side of the roster that would just be fun to play as. So Ito's here as one of those characters that would just be fun to play as. And over on the Capcom side, it's a little loose, but well, yeah. Let me put a couple, since Genshin is kind of like the fantasy, uh, like it's the Mihoyo property that has the most like fantasy vibes. Let me pull out a couple like fantasy vibe characters that use like heavy weaponry, basically. First off, We've got Shinko from Darkstalkers. Um, she made her versus Capcom debut in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and honestly, I think she's got a really awesome versus Capcom moveset. You know, um, it'd be great to see her in another versus Capcom game, and I think she would really fit in the Mihoyo versus Capcom setting. Um, like especially interacting with other Genshin characters, which have like really heavy, like kind of Asian imagery um, and vibes. So yeah, Shinko. And another character which I guess isn't really like explicitly fantasy, but does have fantasy leanings. And another pick for Sean, if he's still here, is the Monster Hunter. Um, so this is my 7th roster, and I always try to think of how I can involve the Monster Hunter franchise uh, in my versus Capcom rosters. This is the first time I've actually included the character that hunts monsters instead of a monster. Like in Shonen Jump versus Capcom, I had Rajang, right? In in Netflix versus Capcom, I had Zinogre. This is the first time where the actual Monster Hunter has showed up. But I think the Monster Hunter is very appropriate in this one, you know? Because the Monster Hunter just has like a range of weapons that they can use, and it feels very appropriate, you know? Feels like a good fit. Um So yeah, the Monster Hunter is here. And Sean said, "Yay, the Monster Hunter." So yay, yay, Monster Hunter. All right. Let's see what Okay, cool. We got the I'll put Folu down here with kind of the fantasy vibe characters actually. So let's do the last Star Rail character in the base roster. And this is from a part of Star Rail that I have not played yet personally. But I've seen her in promotional material, and she seems fucking great. And this is Firefly. So Firefly, oh, I've got some all caps exclamation, so it looks like I made a good pick. Loud applause. Firefly is a character that shows up in the most recent Star Rail arc, this area called Penacony. And I don't know too much about her character, but I do know that basically as the girl in the kind of the lower half of that picture, she doesn't do much. She does most of her fighting inside the mech suit that's behind her. And yeah, she does cool. She's basically a fucking Power Ranger. She's basically like a Kamen Rider. It's more appropriate to say she's like a Kamen Rider. And she's just doing cool like mech suit shit. in her mech suit. And that's a great fighting game moveset right there. That sounds great. So yeah, here she is, Firefly as the last Star Rail character in the base roster. A character that is important to the story, but also a character that would just be a fun fighting game moveset. So she seemed like a no-brainer to put her in there. Um, and let's put our last kind of sci-fi um Capcom character on the base roster, or at least like the last non-boss sci-fi character, maybe I should say. Um, Wesker from Resident Evil. Gotta have a Resident Evil rep in the main roster, and I think Wesker kind of like um kind of interacting with like a lot of like the technology and science in the Star Rail and Zenless Zone Zero worlds, maybe even some of the funky science stuff that's happening in Genshin. Him kind of meddling with all that would make for some very cool moments in the story mode. Also, he's got a baller fucking moveset. He's got a fucking cool moveset. And he was great in Marvel vs. Capcom 3. And he was missing from Infinite, and he shouldn't have been. For reasons you can't explain, Wesker does indeed have Mihoyo energy. Yeah, right? It just seems like he would fit in with the cast. Or rather, a lot of the cast would fucking hate this guy. And that's kind of his purpose, to be fucking hated by the people around him. So he'll be the last character here in kind of this. It's kind of a sci-fi row, I guess. Sci-fi and Darkstalkers. Which brings me to the last Zenless Zone Zero character. So here's the thing. I've played 5 hours of Zenless Zone Zero. And I plan on playing more of it, so I don't want to, like, spoil for myself who the villains are or any of that stuff. So while it might be more appropriate to have, like, whoever the prominent villain character in Zenless Zone Zero is, I just ended up going for a character that I thought would have a fun moveset and whose design I like a lot. Is it the bear? I restrained myself slightly. It's the dog. It's Von Lycaon. I have not seen this character in the game, in the story of Zenless Zone Zero at all yet. I don't really know what he does. But he looks like a hand-to-hand fighter, and he looks like he'd be like a great, like, fucking Rekka character, you know? Like, he just looks like he'd have a cool, like, kind of like monk-style moveset, you know? Or even kind of like a Wolverine-style moveset, you know? Or like a mix of that. His design is great, and he looks like he'd be a fantastic fighting game character. And also, I have a specific rivalry in mind for Von Lycaon, even though I don't know much about him. So I made him the last Endless Zone Zero in the base roster, mainly because if the Mihoyo side has Pubby, then the Capcom side needs to also have Pubby. So, like, Amaterasu is like this literal, like, wolf god, basically, facing off against, like, this strange, like, anthropomorphic wolf person, was very entertaining to me, for me to think of. So it's in the So they fight each other in Mihoyo versus Capcom. That's that's all the logic I have for you. It's all the logic I need in this case. Yep. Yeah, so Amaterasu is in the base roster, which is another thing that always feels good, you know? I don't always have room for Amaterasu in a roster, but it always feels good to have Amaterasu in a roster, so there she is. And that leaves us with the boss characters. So a Mata roster? Oh, that's good. Or bad. So, Kiana, right? We've been talking about Kiana a bit. Um, uh, so the Mihoyo mega franchise is filled with like different like redesigns and different versions of characters from Honkai Third Impact. But I think uh so like there's a lot of different versions of Kiana's friends out there. But I think one of the funniest things I found when I was looking into Honkai Third Impact specifically, and this is the boss character. This is like I'm talking about the boss characters for each side now. I think the funniest thing I found out about Honkai Third Impact is that other Mihoyo games are filled with different versions of Kiana's friends. Honkai Third Impact is filled with different versions of Kiana herself. So the boss character on the Mihoyo side is the hair share of the void, which is like I got very confused like trying to read too much of the Third Impact wiki, I'll be honest. But as far as I can tell, the her share of the void is basically uh like a clone of Kiana that takes over her body and then does evil shit while she's like taken over like Kiana's consciousness. Um so basically uh the idea of the story mode is Kiana will go through all these worlds, interact with all these characters, and then near the end point become the hair share of the void, and all of the characters she's befriended will kind of have to stop her. Um we're approaching Fate and all the different sabers, lol. I didn't realize there was more than one saber. It's a fun idea, you like that a lot. Cool. You somehow pulled hair share of the void in the Honkai Impact 3rd gacha and became so unstoppable that you stopped playing the game. Like you no longer had to worry about team comp or anything. She just smoked everyone. I looked up hair share of the void and I looked up like moveset videos of her to see like how I thought she would fight in the fighting game. And yeah, she is fucking just a beast. Like she does so much crazy shit. She's like a bullet hell shooter in what should just be like a beat 'em up game. Um and maybe that's too overpowered for the game that she's in, but it would be a great moveset for a versus Capcom game. So she's there as kind of the playable boss character on the Mihoyo side. Um and you know, she's kind of the her share of the void is kind of a menace, obviously. Um and things look like but it looks like she could be beatable until a certain Capcom character, the playable boss on the Capcom side, makes things worse and more complicated. And that character is Seth from Street Fighter 4, but in his feminine body from Street Fighter V, because I think it's a slightly cooler design. And also, because I really like how many like femme characters in Mihoyo games are important. So I wanted like the boss. I wanted the Capcom boss to also be femme. Like I saw the opportunity for that, and I thought that'd be cool. Um, so even when Seth is in that body, he does appear to go by he/him pronouns. But yeah, still. Uh, yeah. So basically, like in the story, like in Street Fighter, Seth, you know, kind of uses science and technology to kind of give himself psycho power and like Bison's abilities and stuff. Um, and Still better representation than Merv. Murph, the mass of Nerf darts from Nerf on Hasbro versus Capcom. Wow. After all I went through to give you Murph. So yeah, so basically in the story, like Seth would see this massive science technology like power that is the hair share of the void, and basically like take over the her share of the void and like absorb her power and become like Seth of the Void basically. uh that would be the idea for like the unplayable final boss. But then that would be Mihoyo versus Capcom, baby. Yeah, we got Ryu, Chun-Li, Crimson Viper, Kimberly, and Seth, 5 Street Fighter characters. Usually I hold back more than that, but they all kind of fit this time. We got Raiden Shogun, Tartaglia, Kadahara Kazuha, Zhongli, and Arataki Ito. This is all the Genshin reps. We've got Morrigan, we've got Shinko, we got Mega Man EXE, Tron Bon, and Wesker. We got March 7th, Dan Hong in Bibiter Lune. We got Branya, Silver Wolf, and Firefly. We've got Dante, Monster Hunter, Fo Lu, Amaterasu, and Strider Hiryu. And we've got Nicole Damara, Anbi Damara, Von Lycaon, Kiana Kaslana, and the hair share of the Void. That's your first 30 characters in Mihoyo vs. Capcom. That's your base roster. So that just leaves 2 seasons of 6 character DLC. 3 characters on each company for each season. And yeah, like one thing you'll notice is that kind of the Mihoyo representation is a bit lopsided, right? Like there's a lot more Genshin representation and a lot more Star Rail representation than there is for Mihoyo's other properties. So I try to even that out a bit in the DLC, which means that we're not gonna get a lot more Genshin or Star Rail characters. But yeah, I do what I can to still make this feel like a fun, cool, and varied roster. So yeah, let's begin. Let's begin the DLC. So the first DLC character on the Mihoyo side, we're starting right off with more Zenless Zone Zero. We're beefing up the Zenless Zone Zero representation a little bit with Billy Kid, a dual gunslinging super speedster fucking fucking little chaos boy, little chaos AI robot android boy, um, with uh with with a voice actor that's a little on the annoying side for me, but like still has like a good energy, and I think the voice actor's doing his very best. And I think he's following the voice direction for his character perfectly. Um, but yeah, Billy Kid, I think he'd be an excellent DLC character. You've already folded and decided to buy the DLC pick number one? Well, shit. Okay, cool. Um, yeah, Billy Kid for sure. One thing I keep bringing up Kiana Kaslana. But yeah, one thing I should say about Kiana is that she's dual wielding guns in this picture, but Kiana Castellana has a lot of different like armors and like weaponry basically. I think of Kiana as a character that kind of like wields a lot of different weaponry, including like her swords and stuff. Um, Billy Kid, on the other hand, would purely be a gunslinger character, and I think having a moveset that's purely based on kind of the Rudy Tooty Shooty nature of him would be fun and cool. The first Capcom DLC Season 1 character is Phoenix Wright. I just think he'd be fun. I think it'd be a lot of fun to see him interact with Mihoyo characters, and I think, you know, I think there's a vibe to him that would facilitate his goofy shenanigans, you know? I think Phoenix Wright's moveset would be kind of just right at home in Mihoyo versus Capcom. I think it wouldn't feel too out of it wouldn't feel too like out of character for that game's vibe, you know? And I think it'd be a great DLC pick. Need Phoenix in March as like a Maya type role for him. Oh, that's fun. I do have something fun in mind for Phoenix that I'll probably go into later. You especially need Phoenix talking to Ito and losing more brain cells. Yeah, I maybe I should have put him in the main roster. Maybe I should have put him in the base roster. Alright, the next DLC character. It's funny because I thought like I included this character because it's like, wouldn't it be cool if Sean recognized this character? But it seems like Sean stopped playing this game before this character was introduced. So Honkai Third Impact has gone through this really interesting kind of series of events, I guess, where like you know, like Third Impact had this story arc that went on for years and years. And just last year, they basically like overhauled the game and started a brand new story arc called Third Impact Part 2, with a new set of protagonists, and like, you know, and like more of an open world environment and stuff, right? They like overhauled the game. So the next DLC character on the Mihoyo side is Senadina, the protagonist of Honkai Third Impact Part 2. And like initially I was like, how do I feel about this character? Do I feel like she's just kind of wasting a slot? But then I saw her character design, and she's great. This is a great character design. And I'm seeing people agree with me on that in chat already. But B, her, I don't know how obvious it is in this picture. I guess avert your attention to her left hand. Her weapon in Honkai Third Impact is that she wields dual yo-yos. She has two yo-yos and she's fucking they're like laser yo-yos and she's swinging them around and doing all this crazy shit with them. She's fucking like walking the dog as one of her attacks, and like I guess really she's like sci-fi Bridget, right? Like she like her like she's like a high-tech version of Bridget, I guess. But I think also she could do cool things with her yo-yos. She is doing cool things with her yo-yos in Third Impact that Bridget is not doing. So yeah, the sci-fi yo-yo bitch is absolutely getting added as a DLC character. The the next Capcom DLC character is Regina from Dino Crisis. Again, Capcom now knows how much demand there is for the character. I feel like she's going to be a really obvious pick for a lot of Capcom crossover rosters going forward. But yeah, like I think she'd be good for Mihoyo versus Capcom, so I don't think she doesn't fit here. So yeah, I think she works really well as DLC. I'm correct that you hadn't heard of Senadina, but you do appreciate her. Cool. More characters should use yo-yos. You can only think of 3 offhand with Bridget, Senadina, and Killua. I mean, Killua's phenomenal. Killua's great. Looking forward to using his yo-yos in Nen Impact. Regina in all caps. Yeah, I also put her in Hasbro versus Capcom. But yeah, she still fits really well for Mihoyo versus Capcom. And yeah, apparently it looks like people will spend extra money on her. So here she is. All right, so closing out the DLC on each side, the Mihoyo closer for season 1 of DLC is Nahida from Genshin Impact. Now there's a lot of characters in Mihoyo games that look like little girls, and I actually kind of shied away from that. For the most part, when I was picking playable characters, because you know, some of those little girl characters have kind of vibes that I'm not super comfortable with. And B, it would feel weird if the roster is kind of filled with little girl characters that you're just beating the shit out of. However, Nahida has like won several popularity polls. Like she's considered to be one of the most popular characters in the entire like Genshin community. And B, she's an Archon. She's one of the goddess characters, and she's kind of regarded as incredibly powerful. And C, her moveset would be cool. She has plant power. She's a Dendro character, apparently, and she can, like, control vines and shit, and, like, she could be a really cool zoner character that kind of summons vines in front of her to kind of, like, keep you away. Just kind of fuck you up with, like, plant life from afar. So yeah, I do have her as the Genshin DLC character, and she does seem pretty cool. So there she is, as the last Mihoyo character in season 1. Her little hopscotch plant move would be a fun fighting game move too. Also, yeah, like she has a move where she kind of like stamps her feet and like little plants pop up in front of her. That's great. That's a great fighting game move thing. And I'm back on for the last Capcom character for season 1. For us, Capcom character in season 1, I am back on my Zero is DLC bullshit. Like I've mentioned several times before, I think especially on the Capcom side, it's cool to close out DLC seasons with kind of beloved, with characters that are beloved specifically as versus Capcom characters that the versus Capcom community loves to play as and would pay more money for. Zero is one of those characters, and I feel like I've had him close DLC like maybe 3 or 4 times besides this, but you know, don't fix what ain't broke. It works. Also, like, yeah, it's definitely makes sense to have Zero as DLC. 2 Mega Man characters in this roster feels small. 3 feels just right. So, so there you go. Zero closing out season 1. So we've just got 1 season of DLC left. 3 Mihoyo characters left. And 3 Capcom characters left. Now for the first Mihoyo DLC character for season 2 is my fiance tuned in? I feel like my fiance is currently tuned in, but is my fiance tuned in? Of course you am. Of course you am. So I mentioned that I had a fun idea for Phoenix Wright in Mihoyo versus Capcom. I had a fun idea for Phoenix Wright in Mihoyo versus Capcom, and the fun idea I had was to give him a rival character in the next season. And that rival character is Vin Richter from the visual novel Tears of Themis. Much like Ace Attorney, Tears of Themis is not really a game that facilitates fighting game movesets, but is more of like kind of it's largely just like kind of a dating sim visual novel with like some kind of like debate gameplay. And I picked Vin Richter. I knew you knew I wouldn't betray you by leaving this franchise out. I did Vin. I included Vin entirely for you. So Vin Richter is my fiance's favorite Tears of Themis character, but I also included Vin for like a couple of other reasons. One of them being that I kind of looked around to see what the most popular Tears of Themis character is, and Vin kept popping up. Like, Vin kept winning popularity polls and stuff. It appears that out of the Tears of Themis cast, people do really like Vin Richter. And B, like yeah, like this art of him here, like fucking with like a crystal ball. You thought you'd pick Luke since he's a soldier boy. I decided to use Vin and lean in entirely on Vin won popularity polls. He at least like seemed to like maybe not popularity polls per se, but he seemed to pop up a lot when people were asking about like the most popular characters. There was kind of a mixed response sometimes, but Vin did pop up a lot. But I decided to use Vin not as like a fighting game character, but as kind of like a Phoenix Wright analog, right? Kind of as a representative of the Tears of Themis gameplay, where he would like he would like pull out cards like representing evidence and that kind of thing in a different way than Phoenix, in a way that's more indicative of Tears of Themys's gameplay. Um, but yeah, he'd basically be the Otome visual novel rep, kind of like how in Tatsunoko versus Capcom, you can play as Saki, one of the dateable girls in Narinaro Quiz Dreams or whatever it's called. Um, you know what? He could be kind of the Miles Edgeworth to Phoenix. Oh my god, yeah, they just have an interaction where Phoenix like anytime like Phoenix like interacts with Vin Richter, he's just making references to Miles. He's like, "You remind me of someone I know that's also fucking hot and I want to make love to." Um yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. So yeah, Vin Richter as a Tears of Themis representative, as kind of a surprise like deep cut DLC. So the first Capcom Season 2 character. It's Jill Valentine. Yeah, the roster needs more Resident Evil characters. It feels weird that it's just Wesker, right? So yeah, we put Jill in there. Um, she's not anything like her Marvel vs. Capcom 3 moveset, really. She has elements of her Marvel vs. Capcom 2 moveset, but also a lot more references to Resident Evil 3, which is the most, the Resident Evil 3 remake, which is the most recent game she's been in. Um, and yeah, I think she'd be a great fit for the Mihoyo cast, and yeah, gotta have more Resident Evil characters. I thought about Leon Kennedy instead of Jill, but Mihoyo vs. Capcom specifically, I kind of like how many girl characters are in this. I kind of like that the girls are outnumbering the guys a bit, so I decided to go with the main Resident Evil girl instead of one of the main Resident Evil guys. Especially because we already got a Resident Evil guy. Wesker is a Resident Evil guy for sure. You feel like it's appropriate that Jill has a different moveset in each MVC game since she's basically a different character in every Resident Evil game? That's kind of cool. I like that. It's kind of cool. Okay. On the Mihoyo side, we got one more Zenless Zone Zero rep, and it's the last Zenless Zone Zero rep in the game. And it's the bear. I restrained myself from putting him in the base roster, but I could not restrain myself any further. He's in the game, damn it. Ben Bigger, the construction bear. Look, don't say my name in all caps. Listen, okay? Like, I haven't met him in the story yet. Have I unlocked him yet in Zenless Zone Zero? I have not unlocked him yet, but I got far enough in the game to know that you get him for free because he's important enough to the game that you will unlock him in the story and get to play as him without like having to resort to gacha, right? Like whenever they do that with a character, like that character is important, that character has relevance to the game. So I didn't just pick with my heart here. Like I know in advance that he has larger relevance to Zenless Zone Zero in its early game than a lot more of the cast does. So it felt genuinely appropriate to put him in the roster. Also, he's a big fucking bear wearing chains and and he's got like a fucking drill or some shit that he just slings over his shoulder, and he's like missing an eye, and his name's Ben Bigger. You want me to not fucking put him in a fighting game? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? He's here, and I didn't put him in the base roster, and you should be proud of me for that. I am going to play more Zenless Zone Zero, though, at least until I unlock the bear. Proud is a strong word. You know what? Fair enough. Fair enough. That's fine. I will play more Zenless Zone Zero just so I can meet Ben Bigger in the story and unlock him and play as him. Oh, fuck. I fucked something up real bad. Monster Hunter is DLC. Monster Hunter was in DLC Season 2. I mixed myself up because Monster Hunter was on the base roster elsewhere. I completely forgot about one of the characters I was putting on the base roster. Because she's kind of a weird deep cut, and I think she fits perfectly like alongside like Zenless Zone Zero characters and Honkai Star Rail characters specifically. So the like 14th Capcom character in the base roster, I'm so sorry to reveal this so late, is Vanessa Z. Schneider from the Project Clover Capcom game PN03. Yeah, she's like this. She's like she's almost kind of like a pre-Bayonetta, you know? She's this bitch with sunglasses and in a cybernetic suit, like doing cool things with her guns, and it really does feel like she's kind of the beginning of it kind of felt like she was the first part of Shinji Mikami having the idea for Bayonetta. What was it, Shinji Mikami that had the idea for Bayonetta? Whoever had the idea for Bayonetta, I feel like it started with Vanessa G. Snyder, especially like kind of her vibes, you know? Holy shit, PNO3, the deepest cuts. I'm so mad that I forgot that I deliberately wanted to put her like in the base roster. Because I think she'd be amazing interacting with Star Rail characters or Zenless Zone Zero characters. Yeah, so she's doing like, I've never played Piano 3 myself, but I feel like there's potential for a fighting game roster there. So there she is. There she is. Sorry for fucking that up. Monster Hunter felt kind of obvious as a base roster pick, so I forgot that I did not do that. My bad. It was Hideki Kamiya. Nice. Okay, so yeah, Monster Hunter. Sorry to steal Monster Hunter's thunder. But Monster Hunter as the next to last Capcom rep for DLC Season 2. I guess Monster Hunter got plenty of thunder when I thought they were a base roster character. Bayonetta came after he did the first Devil May Cry and wanted to make a spiritual successor after leaving Capcom. Yeah. Yeah, so like Bayonetta's playstyle was Devil May Cry for sure. But I feel like Bayonetta's design was maybe birthed from Vanessa Z. Schneider from PNO3. Yeah, did he also direct PNO3? Or is that like an unrelated project, basically? Oh, no, okay, yeah. Kamiya, Shinji Mikami was PNO3. Hideki Kamiya was Bayonetta and DMC. I guess I mixed them up. That's my bad. Okay. The last Mihoyo character in the game, the closer for the Mihoyo closer for season 2 of the DLC, is Kafka from Honkai Star Rail. I had to include Kafka somehow. And there were points where she was in the base roster. But I eventually decided that people would be happy to spend extra money on her. So she became DLC. Yeah, Dami Mommy in all caps. Yeah. Yes, she is a Dami Mommy. She she has a move where she fills the screen with fireballs and then snaps her fingers and says boom, and then they all explode. That's obviously one of her supers. Yeah, she'd have a great fighting game moveset. She's got a great personality, a great vibe, a great design. And people will shell out so much extra money just to play as her. So it feels like she's the perfect final Mihoyo character to be DLC. And the last Capcom DLC character is not terribly surprising. If you figured out my patterns by now. So it's Virgil. It's Virgil from Devil May Cry. Yeah, versus Capcom players love him because he's broken as hell. And yeah, I think he's a great Mihoyo character also. He'd be great with the Mihoyo cast. Yeah, and he'd be a good closer for the Capcom side, a character that people would definitely spend extra money for. I feel like I've done him as a DLC closer for like half my rosters at this point, but it just makes so much sense. It makes so much sense for them to hold Virgil until you're ready to spend extra money on him. Maybe I should start maybe instead of doing like, like other company Capcom, other company Capcom, I should do Capcom other company, so that Virgil doesn't become like this anticlimactic end to the episode. Virgil activating his spinny swords install and then wave dashing across the screen haunts your nightmares to this day. It's absurd, isn't it? Isn't it so absurd? But okay, that's Mihoyo versus Capcom. Since I fucked up the main roster, I'll start from the main roster. Ryu, Chun-Li, Crimson Viper, Kimberly and Seth, Raiden Shogun, Tartaglia, Kazuha, Zhongli, and Ito, Morgan, Sinko, Mega Man EXE, Tron Bon Wesker, March 7th, Danhog and Bibiter Lune, Bronya, Silver Wolf, Firefly, Dante, Amaterasu, Folu, Vanessa Z. Schneider, Strider Hiryu, Anbi Damara, Nicole Damara, Anbi Damara, Von Lycaon, Kiana Kaslana, and Hairshare of the Void in the main roster. Then Billy Kid, then season one of DLC is Billy Kid from Zenless Zone Zero, Phoenix Wright from Ace Attorney, Senadina from Honkai Impact 3rd Part 2, Regina from Dino Crisis, Nahida from Genshin Impact, and Zero from Mega Man X. And then DLC 2 is Vin Richter from Tears of Themis, Jill Valentine from Resident Evil, Ben Bigger from Zenless Zone Zero, Monster Hunter from Monster Hunter, Kafka from Honkai Star Rail, and Virgil from Devil May Cry. Fun fact, Dante and Virgil were broken in MVC3 literally just because the guy who designed them was a huge DMC fanboy and gave them like every tool. I do kind of love that. That's very funny. This is a fun lineup. Thank you. You know, yeah, like this Mihoyo versus Capcom was one of those things where I'm like, I don't think I'm equipped to do this, and I don't think this would be fun to do. And then it was very fun to do when I think it's got a lot of potential. Um, I do think that like Mihoyo and Capcom having some kind of a collaboration is inevitable. Like, you know, uh like March 7th showing up as a costume in Street Fighter 6 or something. Um Obviously wouldn't go as far as a full fighting game collaboration. I don't know. I think what's more likely for Mihoyo is for them to commission Arc System Works to make a fighting game that just focuses on their characters instead of having like a crossover game. Um but whatever happens, like a fighting game with Mihoyo characters in it does need to exist. I think it's got huge potential. Um, and I did really like putting this together. So I'm glad it wasn't a complete crash out. I don't know if I'm using that term right. I hope I didn't fully fuck up. And that there were good decisions here. And I will stand by Ben Bigger until the day I die. Um, yeah. So yeah, wow, I did go I did go over stream time today. Um but but yeah, we got two more versus Capcom roster builds under our belt. Um yeah, all done with Hasbro versus Capcom and Mihoyo versus Capcom. Yeah, there's a little glimpse at the Hasbro versus Capcom roster if you missed it. Um, and if you plan on watching the VOD, I guess look away. Yeah, I was trying to get to my webcam. Oops. So yeah, what's left is the Marvel vs. Capcom 4 roster, which I do think could be its own stream. Why do I think it could be its own stream, you ask? Well, why don't we pop over and maybe you'll see why. The Marvel vs. Capcom 4 roster that I prepared is special. Um because while with the other rosters I do think that there will be kind of budget restraints and things and like development schedule things that will mean that, you know, like you can only really expect like a maximum of 30 characters in the base roster. I do think that Marvel vs. Capcom 4 will be a different situation. I think they'll want to start with a big roster as kind of a mea culpa from Infinite. They want to show you that they want to deliver a bigger roster and a roster with a better budget um in order to kind of make up for the mistakes they made with Infinite. Um so I have prepared for MVC4 um a 42 character base roster and then 3 seasons of 6 character DLC for a final roster count of 60 characters. Um yeah. So yeah, this will be a big one when I get to it. It could just be its own stream. I'm excited to get to it. It won't be tonight. It won't be tonight. It's gonna be stacked. Yeah, no, I think this roster is really fun. I'm proud of what I've come up with. Um Honestly, MVC has such a storied history that I didn't get to include every character that I wanted. There's so much on both sides that would be great to include, and I still ran out of space. But yeah, this will be a fun one. This will be a special one. But that will be another time. That will be another time, not tonight. Um, yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for watching. Hope Madame Web's time to shine. Oh fuck, I gotta edit. I gotta edit my list. Um uh yeah, hopefully that was cool. Hopefully you had a good time. Um yeah, I did have kind of a blast putting those rosters together in retrospect. Like some of the rosters I made have been downright stressful to put together, and like uh these these rosters were tough. I had to make some tough cuts. Um but in the end I'm pretty proud of uh of what I put together. Um Honestly, at some point I might do a stream where like so like it'd be fun to revisit some of these rosters in some ways, right? I'm conflicted on whether I should do one like big stream where I just do a season 3 of DLC for every roster I've come up with up to this point. Like, like a season 3 for Shonen Jump versus Capcom, season 3 of Netflix versus Capcom, uh season 3 of Hasbro versus Capcom, etc. Or if I just have like sequel rosters basically where like, you know, I just come up with a Hasbro versus Capcom 2 that adds like 22 more characters, right? Um I don't know which would be, and instead of doing that for like every roster, I select some sequel rosters, and those are kind of their own streams also, right? Um yeah, I don't know if one stream with a little bit of all of them, or or uh more contained streams with bigger rosters for each. I'm not sure which is better yet. I'm not sure which would be a better idea. I'm kind of leaning towards the DLC stream, honestly, where I just do a season 3 for each one. Um just because that one feels more realistic, right? Like, cuz I'm already going out on a limb, right? By predicting a full roster for a versus crossover game where Mihoyo and Capcom have teamed up, right? That's already asking you to suspend your disbelief a bit. Um like I feel like adding 22 more characters to that roster and pitching an entire sequel to you guys, maybe that's more of an ask you know, than here's what season 6 of DLC would be like for this game and some other games. Yeah, I don't know fully where I've landed on that. Um, but I guess I'll mull that over. Um, but yeah, you think the Shonen Jump one could get a sequel? As there's 60 years of history there, and there's a few picks that feel like they should be there. But understandably, I couldn't choose everything. Yeah, no, Shonen Jump versus Capcom would definitely be like an easier one to do a Shonen Jump versus Capcom 2, you know? Yeah, it's just like, should I do like entire sequel rosters when number one doesn't even really exist yet, you know? I feel like that's kind of stretching stretching how much predicting I can really do, you know. But you know, if there's enough demand for it anyway, I'd consider it. All right. Well, yes, this is rung a little longer than most Saturday streams. So thanks everyone. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, I love doing these streams. I continually love doing these streams. They're a lot of work to put together, but it's always like I always feel a sense of payoff once I've shown them off. If I need another dumb one, I could do Mattel versus Capcom. They've got Barbie, Magic 8 Ball, etc. Um, I thought what's really funny is that someone in the Discord suggested Mattel versus Capcom to me. I looked it over. I like looked Mattel's like stuff over and then ended up deciding to do Hasbro instead. I got the idea for Hasbro versus Capcom because of Mattel versus Capcom. Um, but Mattel isn't, that doesn't make Mattel like a bad option that I'd never do. I just ended up finding uh more that I liked about Hasbro and its potential to cross over with Capcom. These streams are fun. Thank you. Thank you so much. Um okay, yeah. Well, that's me for this week. I'll be back on Monday with Devil May Cry. Will I get through the whole game in one stream? I don't know. Two streams probably. But maybe one stream. We'll see. I'm gonna start a full blind playthrough of Devil May Cry 1 on Monday, and then next Friday I'll probably be playing Kunitsugami, which is a new Capcom game. Maybe I'll find a new thing to put into these versus Capcom rosters. Uh, who knows? And and then next Saturday, I don't fully know what I'm doing yet. I'll probably play that by ear. There's the possibility that I'll take next Saturday off. Um, but I'll keep you guys updated on that. I'll keep you guys updated. Uh, okay. Thanks for watching, guys. This was a really fun stream. Thanks for keeping me company and commenting on my fucking wacky fucking roster picks. All right, have a good night.